Hey guys, it's Ellie. Welcome back to Bite-Sized Book of Mormon. I'm glad to have you with me. So, if you've never been here before, this is just a podcast where I read through one chapter of the Book of Mormon each episode, and I give a little bit of context, a little bit of insight, a little bit of good times, so stick around. So, if you remember last episode, we read Helaman chapter 10, which was a pretty short chapter, but basically, God gives the prophet Nephi the sealing power, which is just about as powerful as you can get, really, because it's kind of uncapped power. And God gave it to Nephi without any limitations on it, because he knew for sure that Nephi would not misuse it, and because he is God, he can be sure about these things. So anyways, let's see how this evolves, how Nephi preaches. So yeah, with that, let's read Helaman chapter 11. And now it came to pass in the 72nd year of the reign of the judges that the contentions did increase, insomuch that there were wars throughout all the land among all the people of Nephi. And it was this secret band of robbers who did carry on this work of destruction and wickedness, and this war did last all that year, and in the 73rd year it did also last. And it came to pass that in this year Nephi did cry unto the Lord, saying, O Lord, do not suffer that this people shall be destroyed by the sword, but O Lord, rather let there be a famine in the land, to stir them up in remembrance of the Lord their God, and perhaps they will repent and turn unto thee. And so it was done, according to the words of Nephi, and there was a great famine upon the land among all the people of Nephi. And thus in the 74th year the famine did continue, and the work of destruction did cease by the sword, but became sore by famine. And this work of destruction did also continue in the 75th year, for the earth was smitten that it was dry, and did not yield forth grain in the season of grain, and the whole earth was smitten, even among the Lamanites as well as among the Nephites, so that they were smitten that they did perish by thousands in the more wicked parts of the land. So Nephi uses his sealing power to basically ask God for a famine, which is a little bit crazy. Which, this seems really terrifying, right? Like a prophet of God with limitless power had to plead with the creator God to not kill his people. That sounds very Old Testament, right? That sounds a little bit terrifying. But what it brought to mind to me was Jacob 5, which, if you remember, that is when Jacob is quoting, I believe it is Zenos, and his allegory of the olive tree, and how the olive trees and the fruit that they give represent the people of Israel and, their righteousness or wickedness. And the Lord of the vineyard, the person who's taking care of all the trees, is represented as God. So, this chapter teaches us how God interacts with his people and how their agency is kind of out of his hands. And so it's a very interesting chapter. So if you haven't listened to the episode I did on it, wow, it's a good one. But what it made me think of was that throughout the chapter, multiple times, the Lord of the vineyard, aka God, asks the same question. He says, and this is from verse 47, "What could I have done more in my vineyard? Have I slackened my hand that I have not nourished it?" And then later in verse 49, he says, "I have done all. What could I have done more for my vineyard?" And then, this is very important, and this is why I thought of it, in verse 50, right after the Lord of the vineyard says that, his servants, which are, representative of his prophets, says, "Spare it a little longer." And so the Lord of the vineyard is like, what am I doing wrong? I've done so much for these my people, and they're being wicked. I have done so much for them, and yet I see no other option other than to just burn it down and try again. God is trying the best that he can right now, and his people aren't listening to him. And it's his servants, his prophets, that, are boots on the ground in the field, you could say, spare it a little longer. And I think that that's the role that Nephi is playing right now. The Lord is like, well, they're being wicked, and so of course they're falling into war, and they're being killed by everyone, basically. Both the Nephites and Lamanites are kind of in battle right now. And so they're all gonna die eventually. And the Nephi's like, whoa. Spare it a little longer. And then he asks for a famine, which is like a lesser punishment, right? So God is just trying his best, and he sees no way to get to his kids, and the prophet of God that is in the field goes, wait a minute, let's try this first. And then, because Nephi has the sealing power and God trusts him that much, it happens, which is crazy. So anyways, it's just kind of demonstrating the power that prophets have, right? And obviously he's not counseling God because God is God, but they have a bit of an interesting relationship. Prophets are not only the mouthpiece for God, but they also kind of work together in the same work. I don't know, it's kind of an interesting relationship. And it came to pass that the people saw that they were about to perish by famine, and they began to remember the Lord their God, and they began to remember the words of Nephi. And the people began to plead with their chief judges and their leaders that they would say unto Nephi, Behold, we know that thou art a man of God, and therefore cry unto the Lord our God that he turn away from us this famine, lest all the words which thou hast spoken concerning our destruction be fulfilled. And it came to pass that the judges did say unto Nephi according to the words which had been desired. And it came to pass that when Nephi saw that the people had repented and did humble themselves in sackcloth, he cried again unto the Lord, saying, O Lord, behold, this people repenteth, and they have swept away the band of Gadianton from amongst them, insomuch that they have become extinct, and they have concealed their secret plans in the earth. Now, O Lord, because of this their humility, wilt thou turn away thine anger, and let thine anger be appeased in the destruction of those wicked men whom thou hast already destroyed? O Lord, wilt thou turn away thine anger, yea, thy fierce anger, and cause that this famine may cease in this land? O Lord, wilt thou hearken unto me, and cause that it may be done according to my words, and send forth rain upon the face of the earth, that she may bring forth her fruit and her grain in the season of grain? O Lord, thou didst hearken unto my words when I said, Let there be a famine, that the pestilence of the sword might cease. And I know that thou wilt, even at this time, hearken unto my words, for thou saidst that, if this people repent, I will spare them. Yea, O Lord, and thou seest that they have repented, because of the famine and the pestilence and destruction which is come unto them. And now, O Lord, wilt thou turn away thine anger, and try again if they will serve thee? And if so, O Lord, thou canst bless them according to thy words which thou hast said. And it came to pass that in the 76th year the Lord did turn away his anger from the people, and caused that rain should fall upon the earth, insomuch that it did bring forth her fruit in the season of her fruit. And it came to pass that it did bring forth her grain in the season of her grain. So it sounds like the Gadianton Robbers are no more. It sounds like they were, among the dead in the famine. And, that's amazing news. We know how bad the Gadianton Robbers were for the Nephites. And so it's amazing to hear that they are no more. Although I'm not 100% happy with how things are, because yes, the Nephite people did repent and turn back to God, but only in the face of certain death. Only when they were reminded of the power of God over them. As Alma 32 would put it, they were compelled to be humble, as opposed to humbling themselves. So yes, it's good that they're doing better, but it's not great, right? They had to be threatened with death for them to repent. So I'm not too sure how long this righteousness will last, but hey, let's be optimistic about it, shall we? And behold, the people did rejoice and glorify God, and the whole face of the land was filled with rejoicing. And they did no more seek to destroy Nephi, but they did esteem him as a great prophet and a man of God, having great power and authority given unto him from God. And behold, Lehi his brother was not a whit behind him as to things pertaining to righteousness. And thus it did come to pass that the people of Nephi began to prosper again in the land, and began to build up their waste places, and began to multiply and spread, even until it did cover the whole face of the land, both on the northward and on the southward, from the sea west to the sea east. And it came to pass that the 76th year did end in peace, and the 77th year began in peace, and the church did spread throughout the face of all the land, and the more part of the people, both the Nephites and the Lamanites, did belong to the church, and they did have exceedingly great peace in the land, and thus ended the 77th year. So Nephi and God have a similar thing. They have a thing in common, right? Besides righteousness. They have an eternal perspective. And God has this, a lot more than Nephi could, but Nephi understood that if he had a famine happen, if he asked God for a famine, then that would lead to more long-lasting righteousness than all of them dying in war would. As is being proven right now, the church is spreading, people are being righteous. Most people, both Nephite and Lamanite, are now part of the church. This is awesome. And it's been at least a couple of years since the famine ended, and so it's been really good. And so Nephi was able to use the spirit that he has from God and this authority to understand that a famine would be better. Even though it's still ultimately a tragedy that it has to be used at all, in the situation that the wicked people put them in, it was the best outcome in the long term. So prophets and apostles and God himself have an amazing eternal perspective that we can't always see or understand. Clearly, it worked, right? And so again, even though Nephi calling a famine on his own people seems awfully callous and a little bit Old Testament terrifying, it ultimately worked. People are righteous and happier than they would have been than had they all just died in war. So yeah, there you go. Eternal perspectives, I guess. And also they had peace in the 78th year, save it were a few contentions concerning the points of doctrine which had been laid down by the prophets. And in the 79th year there began to be much strife, but it came to pass that Nephi and Lehi, and many of their brethren who knew concerning the true points of doctrine, having many revelations daily, therefore, they did preach unto the people, insomuch that they did put an end to their strife in that same year. And it came to pass that in the 80th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, there were a certain number of dissenters from the people of Nephi, who had some years before gone over unto the Lamanites, and had taken upon themselves the name of Lamanites, and also a certain number who were real descendants of the Lamanites, being stirred up to anger by them, or by those dissenters, therefore they commenced a war with their brethren. And they did commit murder and plunder, and then they would retreat back into the mountains, and into the wilderness and secret places, hiding themselves that they could not be discovered, receiving daily an addition to their numbers, inasmuch as there were dissenters that went forth unto them. And thus in time, yea, even in the space of not many years, they became an exceedingly great band of robbers, and they did search out all the secret plans of Gadianton, and thus they became robbers of Gadianton. Now behold, these robbers did make great havoc, yea, even great destruction among the people of Nephi, and also among the people of the Lamanites. And it came to pass that it was expedient that there should be a stop put to this work of destruction. Therefore, they sent an army of strong men into the wilderness and upon the mountains to search out this band of robbers and destroy them. But behold, it came to pass that in that same year they were driven back, even into their own lands, and thus ended the 80th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. So not only are people being wicked again, not only is there war again, but there are Gadianton robbers again. Remember earlier when I was unsure about how long this righteousness would last? Now you understand where that came from, because wow, it really did not last. It did last a good couple of years, and those were probably some really good years. But they really turned around again. And so even though the Gadianton robbers were actually eliminated and completely made extinct, as the verse put it, there's a group of wannabes out there that dug up the old patterns of the actual Gadianton robbers to copy them. They're literally Gadianton robber wannabes. That's insane. Although at the very least, it's good this time that these Gadianton robbers don't have the government on their side. They are thoroughly outcasts. They live outside of the city, they live in the mountains, they are separate. And so currently it's not as bad as it was before because they aren't infiltrated into the government. They aren't living among the Nephites. They're living outside of the Nephites. So even though there is a war and there is battle, they haven't really dug themselves into the establishment in the Nephite lands, which is good. So there you go. And it came to pass in the commencement of the 81st year, they did go forth again against this band of robbers, and did destroy many, and they were also visited with much destruction. And they were again obliged to return out of the wilderness and out of the mountains unto their own lands, because of the exceeding greatness of the numbers of those robbers who infested the mountains and the wilderness. And it came to pass that thus ended this year. And the robbers did still increase and wax strong, insomuch that they did defy the whole armies of the Nephites, and also of the Lamanites, and they did cause great fear to come unto the people upon all the face of the land. Yea, for they did visit many parts of the land, and did do great destruction among them, yea, did kill many, and did carry away others captive into the wilderness, yea, and more especially their women and their children. Now this great evil, which came unto the people because of their iniquity, did stir them up again in remembrance of the Lord their God. And thus ended the 81st year of the reign of the judges. And in the 82nd year they began again to forget the Lord their God, and in the 83rd year they began to wax strong in iniquity, and in the 84th year they did not mend their ways. And it came to pass in the 85th year they did wax stronger and stronger in their pride, and in their wickedness, and thus they were ripening again for destruction. And thus ended the 85th year. That was quite the roller coaster of a chapter. We started out, they were being wicked, they were warring, and then there was a famine, and they got really low, but then, hey, they became righteous again, yay! And then that lasted a couple years, and they got really good, and then, oh, there's Gadianton robbers again, and there's war again, and now there's a lot of Gadianton robbers, and they're getting worse, and then, these awful Gadianton robbers reminded the people of, hey, there is God, and then they were righteous for a little bit again, they're still Gadianton robbers, but they were righteous again, but now, oh man, they're wicked again. So, anyways, this chapter goes all over the place. These people cannot stay steady to save their lives. Oh my goodness, especially the Nephites. Mostly the Nephites, it sounds like. The Lamanites, I don't know, they're probably just kind of staying semi-righteous at least. So, anyways, yippee! Nephi flexing his sealing power, Gadianton Robbers returning in a different form, which it's interesting how the Gadianton Robbers are working now, because again, they used to be like a secret brotherhood within Zarahemla itself, and now they've, like I said, left the city, and now they infest the mountains and the wilderness, which is what the verses say, which I love the word infest, by the way. That's such a good description. But it sounds like they're becoming almost a third nation. We have the Nephites and the Lamanites, and now the Gadianton Robbers. Now, they probably don't have that much of a full government, but there is enough of them that they can actually repel both the Nephite armies and the Lamanite armies. So they aren't just like a small splinter group, they have some real power. And so this version of the Gadianton Robbers is different than it's ever been before. They are becoming a military powerhouse compared to what they used to be, which is more of like a secret band of kind of covert murderers and people who infiltrated the government. So yeah, Satan is changing forms. So the standout verse is going to be verse 16, which says, "And now, O Lord, wilt thou turn away thine anger, and try again if they will serve thee? And if so, O Lord, thou canst bless them according to thy words which thou hast said." So this is part of Nephi's prayer to kind of end the famine, because people started being righteous again, which, as we know, didn't last very long, but, you know, the famine did go away because they were righteous for a good couple of years. And I just like the wording, "try again if they will serve thee. And if so, O Lord, thou canst bless them according to thy words." Two things, right? I like the wording, "try again." God has put a lot of time into shaping the Nephites, and they keep failing. There's this pride cycle, they keep getting wicked, and God has to keep humbling them, which, you know, that's not the greatest, but Nephi is entreating God to exercise his patience. And then he says, "If so, O Lord, thou canst bless them." So it sounds like it's not like God is intentionally not blessing them. He wants to bless them, but he can't because they're being wicked. He can only bless them if they're righteous. And so it's not that he stopped blessing them out of a hatred or spite or pettiness. He stopped blessing them because he stopped being able to bless them. They wouldn't let him in. So I just like that wording of can. Like, if so, Lord, you will be able to bless them again. Finally, right? Anyways, I just like that wording, and it really puts the relationship between God and his people and his prophets in a really interesting light. So I think we can learn a lot from this. So yeah, that is the episode for today. I hope you enjoyed. This was definitely a very roller coastery chapter, so yeah, a lot of stuff happened. Anyways, so I just want to let you know about a couple things. Recently, I started a Substack, so if you want to read some articles about the Book of Mormon on different chapters, then go ahead and subscribe there. The link is in my link tree, which is down below. That link tree also has all of my other links, like my YouTube and my Instagram, and a donation link if you like what I'm doing. And you can also read the Book of Mormon for yourself. You can contact me directly. Yeah, anything you want, it'll be there for you. Make all your dreams come true. Click that link. I'll see you around. Anyways, yeah, that's all I've got for you today. I'll talk to you later. Bye.